Welcome to the Spiritist Companion Podcast. My name is Yuri Castro, and I'll be your companion on this journey where we study, reflect, and put Spiritist teachings into practice. Today is our last episode of the year. Yes, next week we're going to be taking a 1-week vacation, and we'll come back in January. And the topic of today is the Kingship of Jesus, our dear Master Jesus. But what kind of king was Jesus? Where is his kingdom? And what does it mean to recognize his kingship through the lens of Spiritism? Shall we walk together through these reflections, my dear friends? Well, first, when we think of royalty, I think that we usually imagine crowns, thrones, palaces, armies, and material power. But Jesus was a king unlike any other, because he completely overturns this idea. Jesus is born in a manger, lives as a carpenter, walks among the poor, the sick, the marginalized, and he dies on a cross. Before Pilate, Jesus declares, "My kingdom is not of this world." We have this one on John 18. We learn through Spiritism, and this is Allan Kardec's Gospel According to Spiritism, that the kingdom of God announced by Jesus is that of justice, of peace, and of charity. It is not a physical place, but a state of consciousness. Whenever we live charity, humility, forgiveness, and love for others, we are, even if imperfectly, helping to build this kingdom. The kingship of Jesus, my dear friends, is manifested wherever there is comfort for the afflicted, hope for the despairing, and light for those still walking in darkness or ignorance. Of course, that we already talked about in this podcast about the different stages that the spirits can be born into. So we have different types of planets, of course, but we find that the kingship of Jesus is reflected in this essence of a spiritual reign that is not a political one. His kingship also in the essence of a moral power, not a material power, and an authority grounded in love, not in force. Also in the Gospel according to Spiritism, we have that Jesus is this most perfect type that God has offered to humankind to serve as its guide and as its model. In the Spirits book, we also find the different categories of spirits based on their degree of evolution. Jesus is in the first order, the order of the pure spirits. And we will learn that this is a category or an order in which the influence of matter is null. There is a superiority, both intellectual and moral, so absolute as to constitute what, in comparison with the spirits of all the other orders, may be termed perfection. These spirits of this order, just like Jesus, have passed up through every degree of the scale of progress. They have freed themselves from all the impurities of materiality. Having attained the sum of perfection, we also learn, of which created beings are susceptible, they have no longer to undergo either trials or expiations. That means, my dear friends, that they are no longer subject to reincarnation in perishable bodies, just like we have. They enter on the life of eternity in the immediate presence of God. They are the messengers and the ministers of God, the executors of His orders in the maintenance of universal harmony. They exercise a sovereign command over all spirits inferior to themselves, aid them in accomplishing the work of their purification, and assign to each of them a mission proportionate to the progress already made by them. How beautiful is that? And isn't that exactly what our Master Jesus did here? Helped the suffering, showed us the way, lit a light that is inextinguishable, trailed a path that we are still trying to follow, especially in this week, the week that we celebrate His birth. We have to consider everything that Jesus did. He is a spirit that has already attained moral perfection because of His own free will, because of His own choices. And the kingship of Jesus does not come from any earthly title, anything that is very arbitrary, that is used, as we already talked in this podcast before, as an instrument of evolution. No, the kingship of Jesus comes from His spiritual superiority, achieved through His own merits throughout His evolutionary journey. Jesus governs not by imposition but by example. His moral authority is incredible because He did not rule nations, He transformed consciences. Let us look at a few examples, for instance, of this moral kingship. When in the face of hatred, He taught love for enemies. Love your enemies, He said. We find this one in Matthew chapter 5. In the face of violence, He responded with gentleness, such as when Peter draws his sword. Jesus says, "Put your sword back in its place." Also in Matthew, this time chapter 26. Or we can even think of the moment of the crucifixion when He asked for forgiveness. In the face of judgment, what did He do? He offered mercy. To the adulterous woman, let the one who is without sin cast the first stone. So many examples of this moral authority. And this is the throne of Jesus, the human heart. Jesus was the servant king. I think one of the most powerful, perhaps, images of Jesus' kingship is found in the episode where He washed the disciples' feet. We have this one in John 13 when He rose from supper, laid aside His garments, and began to wash the disciples' feet. And what did He say at the end? "I have given you an example." Such a rich example, full of love as well, because our dear Master taught us that whoever wished to be great must serve. And this, my dear friends, is the logic of the kingdom of heaven. We also have other authors, such as Emmanuel, who wrote through Chico Xavier, when he states that Jesus reigns not from the heights of human thrones, but within the depths of souls that accept His love. Yes, Jesus did not come to be admired. He came to be followed. To recognize the kingship of Jesus, therefore, is to live His teachings, not merely exalt them with words. And on that same note, let us move to the part of this podcast where we try to apply these teachings in our daily lives. And I brought here 5 things that we can do. Number 1, we can try to govern our own emotions because Jesus taught self-mastery. So before reacting with anger, with pride, with, impatience, let's ask ourselves, what would Jesus do in my place? Number 2, let's serve where we are, at home, at work, within our family. Small acts of service can build great transformations. Number 3, let's practice charity, especially the silent one. So let us not seek recognition because the kingdom of Jesus grows in the anonymity of good deeds. Number 4, let's forgive as an act of moral sovereignty. Forgiveness is not weakness, it is spiritual royalty. Number 5, let us cultivate eternal values because the reign of Jesus invites us to prioritize these values such as truth, simplicity, love, compassion, so forth and so on. The crown of Jesus, my dear friends, was not made of gold. It was made of thorns. His scepter was not one full of diamonds and precious gemstones. No, it was a piece of wood that they gave him. Symbolically shows that true love passes through sacrifice because his victory was not over nations but over human selfishness. His kingship does not end. It grows each time one of us chooses to live the good. My dear friends, yes, Jesus is King. King of hearts, King of awakened consciences, King of hope that never dies. So I wish that we recognize this kingship not only with words but with daily actions, making our hearts a small territory of the kingdom of God. My dear friends, my dear companions on this earthly journey, thank you so much for your presence. Thank you so much for your love, for your attention. Looking back, I'm filled with gratitude that we started this journey together in 2025. Now we'll take a 1-week break and we'll come back in January 2026 full of hope, full of new materials, but always with the seeds of light in our hearts, guided by Spiritism. I wish each and every one of you a very bright Christmas. Let us remember the true purpose of Christmas and the Kingship of Jesus, and also a very happy 2026. As usual, if this message touched your heart, share it with someone who might be in need of light and hope. And until next year, stay in peace, walk in faith, and continue under the light of Christ. With fraternal love, your Spiritist companion.